What's going on, people? King here, and welcome to the King's Monologue. So I've completed another reconstruction, and I have to say I'm quite excited about this one. It's a bit of a bittersweet situation in terms of this reconstruction, because this reconstruction does feel a little bit superfluous, because this is actually a reconstruction of Queen Tiye. And for anyone who's familiar with Queen Tiye, they'll know that the existing bust of Queen Tiye is probably one of the most lifelike, and it's probably one of my favorite portraits of an ancient Egyptian monarch. It's so lifelike and it's so vibrant, and to be honest with you, it doesn't even really require a reconstruction. That's how good it is. But unfortunately, we don't live in a straightforward world. Just like I did with my other reconstructions of Tutankhamun that you may or may not have seen already, the approach was the same. I wanted to recreate the bust, and then the ultimate litmus test for me was to see if this overlaid well with the mummy, so that I could confirm actually this is what she looked like. Because to me, that is going to be the barometer. Was this a piece of stylistic art? If the features all line up and everything looks copacetic, for want of a better word, then we can essentially say that this is what Queen Tiye looked like. So anyway, without further ado, I've been talking and rambling on for a little while now. Here is the bust of Queen Tiye that I have created. As you can see, I haven't tried to change anything. I've preserved every single feature. So you'll see the width of the nose, the width of the lips, even that very famous, downturn of our outer lips, that kind of very stern, strong expression that is very, very becoming of a ruler like Queen Tiye. I've preserved that. The eye shape as well, this is something that I found really, really interesting. If you look at her eyes, they are actually incredibly large. She has very large eyes, and I wasn't sure if this was going to translate into a reconstruction. Were they perhaps too large? But actually, you can see here an eye size like that is actually, I would say, just within the bounds of normality. You can see in terms of her age as well, I wanted to present her as someone who was in their kind of 40s. This would have been in and around the time, I believe, or the age she was when this bust was created. At least that's my best estimation from looking at the bust. I don't think this was a young Queen Tiye. I think this was a well-worn stateswoman who had been in the position for some time. So all of that you can see I've tried to preserve, and feature-wise, doing this reconstruction wasn't difficult, because once again I borrowed very heavily from the surrounding areas. I think there's a little bit of Afar, there's a little bit of Aroma, a little bit of Northern Kenyan. There's a few features that I just had to borrow, but all of these features were already existing in surrounding populations, so it meant that I didn't have to jump through many hoops to get this reconstruction created. Overlaid with the mummy, it is perfect. Once again, the mouth, the nose, the eyes line up perfectly, proving that no distortion is required to make this fit. Also, very notably, you'll notice the cheekbones that I was struck immediately. Those high pronounced African cheekbones that Queen Tiye has really show in this reconstruction, which is one of the reasons why I think this is a really accurate reconstruction. The eyes as well, you notice the eyes are quite large and protruding. This is something that is true of the bust, and I wanted to preserve this, and this seems to be consistent with the mummy itself as well. So many consistencies. Once again, if those busts were just artistic representations with no bearing on reality, then this would be a mismatch. It just wouldn't fit. It's not easy. You can't just take anyone's face and make it fit on top of a mummy. But you can see here we have perfect confluence between the different features on her face and with the mummy itself. So once again, massive big tick. And there should be a vote of confidence to the ancient Egyptian or the Kemetic artisans who were able to produce such immense artworks that have stood the test of time. Initially, actually, when I created the afro, it had a perfect, almost like a perfect round shape to it, and wanting to be truer to the actual texture of a hair that was discovered, I wanted to make it more in line with the populations of the Nile Valley where they have a slightly softer hair that falls slightly, so they have an afro, but the afro will tend to be a bit flat at the top because of gravity, obviously, and it grows very large. So if you actually look at the texture of the hair, it is this kind of slightly looser curled afro that is able to grow into something that's slightly larger. It falls down slightly, it doesn't grow upwards with the same tenacity that tightly curled hair does. This is actually something that's very common once again throughout Africa. My sister is not able to grow around afro. She has very loose hair, and her afro, essentially when it gets to a certain height, it just automatically will part itself in the middle and begin to collapse on each side. I'm desperately jealous of her because my hair cannot grow that long. But yeah, there you have it. This is my reconstruction of Queen Tiye. Once again, if I'm going to be totally honest with you, I don't feel like I'm adding a huge amount. This was already a fantastic portrait, a very lifelike bust. So it almost seems a little bit ridiculous doing a reconstruction when you already have a very lifelike bust. But, you know, maybe has added some value, and I think it's probably good to also get art images out there that counter the narrative, that counter this false narrative that the ancient, you know, she wasn't how she portrayed herself. You know, she was this kind of you know, this kind of Levantine looking Middle Eastern woman, which she wasn't. And she was an African. She was a very proud African. You can actually see in her other portraits she was very consistent about the way in which she portrayed herself, like people of the continent. There it is. There's my portrait of Queen Tiye. I'm quite proud of it, and I think once again it's a nice complementary addition to this Armana series of portraits that I seem to be creating at the moment. As you can imagine, in my sights, Amenhotep III, her husband, is going to be a portrait that I think I'm going to absolutely relish bringing to life with a reconstruction. And then we can maybe look at Akhenaten and some other members of the Armana period. But yeah, there you go. That's my reconstruction. If you've enjoyed the video, please, you know what to do. Please leave a like. Subscribe. I need subscribers, and obviously a massive thank you to all the people who have subscribed already. At the point of recording this video, I think I had just shy of 300 subscribers, so you know the growth has been amazing. But please do subscribe, join the channel, and if you'd like to, obviously I have a Patron as well if you wish to support. The more Patron support I get, the more time I can essentially commit to these reconstructions and bringing you more of our African history. So yeah, there you go. This has been King. Thank you for coming to the King's Monologue, and I'll see you in the next one.